All right. Hello, everybody. Sprite here from Condé Systems. I am very, very excited because we have a very special guest today, Becky Dyke from Vinyl Me Crazy. Hi, Becky. Thank you so
Hi,
much for
Spry.
joining us. Oh, I see Jerry Dyke is on, my number one fan. Hello, Jerry.
I think everybody loves Jerry.
Right? Jerry,
Her and I are long lost cousins.
I just got an email from Christopher Sigmund about you, actually, that I have to send you a prize. So congratulations. She's a treat. She is an absolute treat. So I'm very excited for today because you're going to be talking all about Silhouette Studio.
Yes, absolutely. And Silhouette Studio is it's almost an obsession for me. Like I feel like, I started in Silhouette Studio because I started with a silhouette cutting machine, but it is surprisingly a pretty robust software, especially for, I'll call myself like a medium level designer. Like I like to design things, but I also like it to be easy and I don't want to have to learn anything hard. So it kind of goes hand in hand. So I do really love Silhouette Studio.
Well,
So
fantastic. And also, I just want to let everybody know you supplied me with a link of an overview of this class. And if you guys are interested in that, I put it in the comments of YouTube. I'll put it in the description after the live, and it is actually in the description of the Facebook page. So if you want to check that out, click on it. It's a PDF download. And I guess with that, I'm just going to turn it over to you, and you can teach us all about Silhouette.
yay, thank you, thank you. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. Like I said, I started using Silhouette Studio because I have a silhouette cutting machine. But once I figured out that there were a lot of designing capabilities to do in the software, I use it exclusively for my sublimation, either whether designing or printing or anything like that. But in addition to just the designing, it also allows you to pair your vinyl products with your sublimation crafting. So being able to use things like the Caesar Easy Subli and run it as a print and cut, or also, just glitter heat transfer vinyl, or there's really a lot of things that you can do being able to use the design in Silhouette Studio, and then also being able to either cut out your design or cutting out the vinyl or corresponding material to match your design also. So lots of really cool things. So what I'm going to do is, like Sprite said, we do have the handout. And what I've done is I have given you a brief overview of what Silhouette Studio is. And then I have some talking points that we're going to go over today. And then also I have like rather key points so that if you're interested in learning more about Silhouette Studio, then you can search those key points because, while today is an overview, like I said, it's actually a pretty robust software for what it is. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know what you're searching for or kind of know where to start your journey, then hopefully these keywords will be able to help you to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share with you if that's okay. Let's see. And this is just a very, this is basic design. We're not getting into this yet, but I wanted to have something on the screen for you to look at. But basically this is Silhouette Studio. It is what I consider an open software, meaning that I can set up any type of designing here, and then I can move it out of the way for storage later on. I can also choose to save designs to Silhouette Studio's library, or I can save to my hard drive. All right, so those are just some really important things because we're going to touch on those in a minute. Now, like I said, you can print directly from Silhouette Studio, but for those of you, because Silhouette Studio does not utilize like color profiles and more advanced printing options, you kind of print from Silhouette Studio and what comes out of your printer is kind of what you get. But it does have another feature in that if you are using the business edition upgrade, okay, it is a purchase, but if you use the business edition upgrade, then you can actually save your image as a PNG, and then you can print it from whatever software you prefer to print it from. So it just depends on which way you want to look at it. So you can print from Silhouette Studio like I do, but I'm a hobbyist, so you know, color accuracy is not super important to me. Now I have great colors, I do, but I know that not everybody feels that way. So if you print and you feel like your colors aren't what they need to be, then you can start saving as a PNG and then printing from your normal software, okay? Now that also means that you are free to print from free programs like Microsoft Word or Microsoft Publisher. There's just a lot of simple programs that you can design and open up and print. So lots of really great options being able to save and use that type of feature. Let's go ahead and talk about a few of the other tools that you'll find in here. Now we talked about the print and cut tools. Those are going to be, let me give you an example, up here in the page setup panel. Okay, if you ever see anybody refer to registration marks, or if you see anybody using these for print and cut, that's what they're for. And basically the reason I want to show you this is just to give you a better explanation that you can line up whatever design you want, and you're going to turn on these registration marks. And what that's going to allow you to do is the software will choose, well, you will set it up, but it will cut around the design that you have. So basically, you know, it has the tools in there to be able to detect and print, or detect and cut, so that you don't have to cut by hand. You don't have to try to, you know, work around different types of, you know, fussy cutting, so to speak. I know a lot of people have to do that and it can be frustrating. So that is one of the biggest features of being able to do Silhouette and Sublimation together. Now I'm just gonna pause. I know this is a Silhouette overview, but a lot of people will ask, you know, can I do this in Cricut Design Space? And the answer is technically yes. Okay, but there's a few more limiting factors to come into play. So if you are on the fence about which machine to go with as far as sublimation goes, then I definitely recommend Silhouette. So just because that's a common question, I just wanted to go ahead and knock that out. So also, like I said, the ability to use heat transfer vinyl. So we touched about the Easy Subli, and we also talked about the glitter heat transfer vinyl, because you can use both of those without using it with the print and cut feature. Not everybody's a fan of print and cut, and that's okay, because you can still line up and press your design without using the print and cut, right? And then you can also create and print your own patterns. And what I mean by that is that, for example, if you have a black color t-shirt and you have white glitter heat transfer vinyl, then you don't even have to worry so much about contouring your design. You can actually just line up that pattern and press it right onto your white glitter. So that's just a few things that you can do when really combining the two type of crafting together. Now, the more robust part of the software is going to be the designing part, because you are able to use your templates and your patterns. Now, I did download, just to give you an example, again, I have the Business Edition upgrade, and I downloaded a CDR file to be able to show you guys how to pull that in. Now, let me see. I think I still, let me see. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to open, and I'm going to locate that in my downloads folder. I have to unzip it. Now, if you have just, and I don't mean just, I mean the basic version of the software is also really rewarding. You won't be sorry, and that part is free. But being able to use these CDR files is a feature of the Business Edition upgrade. So here's an example. So I downloaded this from the Condé website, and this is probably one of my first and favorite projects. It's the template for the car coasters. And I really love, of course, that it comes with a template, and I loved it even more when I found out that I could pull in that design and use it in Silhouette Studio. So let me give you just a brief example of why you would want to be able to use these templates. Let's flip this around so you can see it. And let's go ahead and turn off those. We don't actually need the registration marks. All right, so this is a basic SVG file. It's actually just like a cut file. So, you know, feel free to definitely keep in mind all of your SVG options. But what I want to show you is if I bring this template over and I size down my pattern. Now, just like I brought in that CDR file, you can use the same method. Just go to File and Open or File and Merge, and you can bring in any patterns you need to, any clip art, anything like that that you usually use for your sublimation. But you can select these two. And this is one of the points that's on your downloadable handout is the Modify panel. The Modify panel is very useful because what I can do is I can use the crop feature. Okay, so no matter where I align this on my pattern, I can just select these and choose crop. And the sizing is accurate. When you bring the template in to Silhouette Studio, it is an accurate sizing. So if I were to print this exactly like it is, it would be an accurate template for using on the car coaster. So let's bring this to the front. And then all I'm going to do is make this a little smaller. And there we go. So we talked about the Modify panel, the crop feature. Okay, now that's useful for your patterns. That's useful for cropping down photos. I use that a lot to be able to determine where, if I'm using a live photo, maybe a wedding photo or something like that, I'll go ahead and size in and bring in a template. That way I can really determine and narrow down where that photo is going to press. And then also another thing that you're seeing here that we want to touch on is the ability to use these offsets. Okay, I don't know about you, but I know a lot of times when I'm using patterns or photos and I really want to make my text pop, then I'm going to use this offset feature. Okay, so again, just another talking point to research. These are all features that you can go ahead and play with in the free version of Silhouette Studio. And there's a lot of things that you can do right there without having to pay a dime. But, you know, when you start getting more and more advanced in Silhouette Studio, then you will want to, you know, think about checking out the Designer Edition or the Business Edition upgrade. So sometimes when you watch videos, that can be confusing. But for the most part, you really get a lot of, we'll say, bang for your buck, because you don't have to pay anything in the free version too, and experiment and see if Silhouette Studio is even right for you. Okay, so let's see, what else can we talk about? You can use fonts with glyphs. All right, so what I'm going to do, let me zoom back out, and this is where I can just move it off to the side because it's only going to print whatever I have on this page here. Okay, so I can easily type in anything that I want, any type of text. I'm going to make it larger so you guys can see it better. And let's go ahead and fill it in with black too, just so that you can see. And then, so over here on the right hand side is your text style panel. And you can come in here and choose any font that is installed on your computer. Okay, so if I work my way down, let's find one that has just some cute little glyphs. And then this is a glyphs panel. Now, this is unlocked with the Designer Edition upgrade, but you can use the character map. If you guys are familiar with that on your computer, you can use your character map. But you'll see if I scroll down, I get the access to preview all of the glyphs that are available with this font. So what I'll do is just double click, erase the letter that I want to replace, click it with that glyph, and it will just replace it right there in my text. All right. Now you do get the blue underline, and that's just because it's picking up a spelling correction or a spelling recommendation, but you can ignore that. If you want to get rid of it, you can just right click and go ahead and weld it or group it together with another item. But that blue line isn't going to print, so unless you're like me and you just don't like the visual view of it, you can just leave it alone, okay? But being able to use the glyphs so easily is a really big deal to me. So I really like to show everybody that. The same goes for dingbat fonts. If you work very much with dingbat fonts, in that you can preview all the dingbats right here in your glyphs panel because they're programmed in the same way. So that is going to be your fonts with glyphs. And you can also trace clip art. Now, tracing isn't too important for sublimation unless you're trying to download and use and maybe isolate certain types of clip art. But it is just a very useful feature in Silhouette Studio. So even if you don't think it's something that you'll use right off the bat, it is an area that I recommend researching and maybe checking out a few videos on, just because it's a very useful designing element to be able to add to your designing. So let's see. The last thing we're going to talk about, and hopefully we'll be able to go over maybe some question and answers. Well, okay, we have two things to talk about, but the last feature we're going to talk about is unlocked for the business edition, and it's going to be the Conical Warp. Okay, and what that means is that if you are sublimating anything, whether it's a tumbler, a coffee mug, something that has a curved surface, then you have a warp feature where you can come in here, and it's going to be this little icon that looks like a cup, and you can manipulate whatever design. Let's see, let's just use our hello. And we're going to click on it and do Conical Warp selected shapes. And then down here, you can type in any measurements that you take. Now, you do actually want to measure what you're working with, right? For example, if the top of my mug is 3 inches and the bottom is only 2.5, I'm going to have a very tapered look, okay? And then we'll say it's 7 inches tall. So maybe this is a tumbler. And do you see how it gives me this outline here? It's a very faint outline, but what it has done is it has curved my hello so that when I print this out and put it on my item, then it will have a slight curve to it also. Now, for a word like hello, it's probably not that big of a deal, right? Because is it really going to, make a big difference on the curved surface? But for patterns or for designs where things are really going to start getting weird, or if you have extremely curved surfaces, like I used a coffee mug. Well, if I have a coffee mug that has a really, really big warp, or rather a taper, then having the warp feature is going to be more useful because it'll make the text look like it curved up. Okay, so that is just a very, and I'll say it's relatively new. I guess it's been out a couple years now, but it was definitely all the rage when it first came out. So it makes me feel old to say that out loud. Okay, so that is my overview of the best features that you're going to use in sublimation when you're designing in Silhouette Studio. Let's go ahead and talk about if you are choosing to print from Silhouette Studio. I have some tips for you as far as being able to get a successful print. All right, the very first thing is you always want to check your page setup panel. This is probably the most important panel out of all of them. And by the way, guys, I keep talking about panels, but if you have a hard time locating the icons over here on the right hand side, that's okay. There is a panels menu up here at the top of the software that you can click also. And then you can just choose your panel from here. It does the same exact thing. But up here in your page setup menu, page setup panel, this is where you're going to work and input your information so that what you're looking at on your screen matches what you're wanting to send and feed into your printer. Okay, so for a machine, I'm going to come down here and choose none because I actually am not going to cut with my Cameo. I am designing to print. My cutting mat will also be none. And then my media size, I can leave it at letter if I print with letter. What I'm going to do, I like to print with my 13 by 19 sheets. So I can just type in 13 inches wide and 19 inches high. And that's going to give me the size of the sheet. So what this will allow me to do is to gang up all of my images or just fill up this page with whatever images I want to print. And then let's also take a look at your orientation. You can choose what your orientation is. And then you can also do show print border. And this is very important because a lot of people who have problems printing from Silhouette Studio could really benefit from knowing about this tool down here, the show print border. As you can see, it's a thin gray line, and it gives me the part of the page that is going to print. So for this design here, that wouldn't be a big deal. It would print that design. But obviously, if I'm wanting to print designs that take up my entire sheet, or maybe they line up over here on the right-hand side, then I don't want my design to be cut off. And that's exactly what this line is telling you. Anything outside of this line is going to be cut off. So how do you fix it? Well, that's going to be fixed in your printer settings. So I'm going to go ahead and go to print. And this is going to give you a print preview, another very important part of printing from Silhouette Studio, because you can tell when your design is going to be cut off. Okay, so that's just a preview of what my page will look like according to my settings. So I'm actually going to go into print, and I'm going to choose my printer that I want to print with. And when I click over on preferences, this is where I'm going to tell my printer what I'm sending over. So I'm going to change my document size, and I'll change my paper type, and I'm just going to hit OK, and I'll hit apply. Now I'm not going to print yet. I'm going to hit cancel, and I'm going to cancel again. And now do you see when I go back to Silhouette Studio, how because it picked up that new page size, it shows you this thin gray border around the entire sheet now. All right, and that's telling me that now my printer and my software have communicated, they've communicated effectively, and they are ready to print everything that is inside of that gray line. So of course I can go through the process again and go to print and print it out that way. Another thing, just before I forget, because I usually do forget this and I don't want to for you guys, I flip my design in Silhouette Studio. It's a feature that you have in the software. Not everybody does that because usually your printer will have the ability to mirror the design for you. As a matter of fact, I got an email with this question earlier, and it said, hey, I mirrored my design in Silhouette Studio, but when it comes through my printer, it's printing normal. Well, if you have mirrored it in Silhouette Studio, and a lot of Silhouette Studio instructors will tell you to do that because that's what we're used to doing. But if you mirror it in Silhouette Studio and your printer is also mirroring it for you, then they're going to cancel each other out. So just make sure that whatever you have set up on your printer, you keep that in mind if you choose to either mirror or do not mirror in Silhouette Studio. So that is my very basic overview. I want to go ahead and open it up to questions if we have any.
I did have one question
Okay.
on YouTube about needing a color profile like you would from Photoshop.
So you do not have the color profiles in Silhouette Studio. That is probably, I would say, single-handedly the biggest drawback of printing sublimation from Silhouette Studio. Now, my personal experience, I have not had any problems, but I am a hobbyist printer. I do not print as a business. So obviously as a business, color profiles are going to be very important for you. Now what you can do is you can still design in Silhouette Studio if you want to, and then you can import into a software that will allow you to use the color profiles. Now the only reason you would want to do that, because if you're looking for a color profile, then you probably have a more robust designing software than Silhouette Studio does. The only reason you would want to do that is number one, if you don't want to learn a more robust software, okay? Or if you're trying to line up a design to be able to print and cut, then you are going to print from Silhouette Studio. Or if you are lining up to be able to size a certain piece of vinyl to be able to sublimate on. So a couple reasons why you would still want to learn the ins and outs of the software, but no, you're not going to be able to use your color profiles when printing from Silhouette Studio.
Okay, I didn't really have very many questions, Becky. I think you did a fantastic job. But one thing I want to talk about personally, because I don't really use Silhouette Studio, unless of course I'm cutting something, is the warp function, the conical function. That's amazing, because
it's really neat.
The way that I have to make a template is just insanity. I have to like roll it across the table to get the arc, and the ability to just enter in the numbers is just fantastic. That's amazing. So thank you for teaching me that today. I love to learn new things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just have a whole lot of people saying hello to you. A couple of people said that they thought they were on the wrong channel. So
yeah, I kind of bounce around.
oh, I do have. How easy is Silhouette to use with an iPad Pro?
So there is an app. There's a Silhouette Go app. It's available for Apple and Android products, but in terms of using it for sublimation, I don't think that's the direction that you're going to want to go. Now, it does have the basic features if you're looking to cut with it, but the apps are just very limited, and I don't think that's bad. I think that that's pretty normal for an app, but it's probably, you're probably going to leave feeling disappointed if you're used to working with the desktop version, because it cannot be as robust as the computer software.
Do you have any other features of the business edition that maybe you can touch on, or that you?
Absolutely. I could talk all day long about Silhouette Studio. So, well, first of all, if you are curious, let me go back to screen sharing. I want to get up a different screen for you. Okay, there we go. So you can download, like I said, you can download it for free from the Silhouette America website. And you just go to silhouetteamerica.com/software. And this is just going to be where you choose where to download from. Now, what I recommend, and what Silhouette America is currently recommending, is unless you have a newer model cutting machine, so unless you have a Cameo 4 Pro or a Portrait 3, then you're going to want to stay on this 4.3.370. But not a lot of people know how to get to that. It's going to be under your legacy versions, and that's, you won't see that right off the bat. You have to click on the little arrow, and you can scroll down, and you're going to look at, here we go, 4.3.370. So I just wanted to show you that while I'm here. But Silhouette America has a, let me find the link. They have a comparison. Nope, that was the wrong button. Let's see. Oh, here it is. They kind of hide it, but it's down here. It says click here for Silhouette Studio feature comparisons. And I just wanted to point this out because a lot of people will have questions, especially if you do start watching videos and learning more about Silhouette Studio. You may be confused about what options are unlocked at certain points. You can upgrade in steps. So you can start with the basic edition. You can upgrade to Designer Edition. Then you can upgrade to Designer Edition Plus. Then you can upgrade to Business Edition, or you can jump right in from the beginning and go straight from basic to Business Edition. So whatever works for you, but not everybody is ready to make that type of commitment. Now, when I'm talking about a commitment, you're looking at about a $60 purchase. So still not super bad, nothing compared to, you know, what we're used to investing for sublimation. So I really like that a lot. But if you check out, oops, this last line over here, all of these features are going to be your business edition. So if we scroll down, here's where you gain the ability. Now, I did talk about the CDR files, but obviously there are Adobe files and other types of files that you can import. And as far as sublimation, now automatic nesting is kind of neat, but I really don't use nesting a whole lot with sublimation. And then being able to export. Now you can export as I most commonly export as a PNG with a transparent background. That was a big deal when it came out because I was able to, you know, maybe take a screenshot or something like that, but you know, you really get a higher resolution image. And then also that transparent background, you know, is, for me, is pretty important if I'm trying to, you know, nest all my images together or combine elements with other elements. There is also this is kind of neat. It's a handwritten font creation, and I have played with this. My font creation skills are lacking, but it's really neat. So if you ever start getting into sublimation and maybe you're a doodler or you have really awesome handwriting, you can use that in your sublimation designs. And then let's see. I'm going to go back down a little bit. Now we're talking about, here's the warp, all right, the conical warp. That's actually unlocked at the Designer Edition Plus, okay? If I'm going to go to the Designer Edition Plus, I'm probably going to spend, I think it's like an extra $15 or $20 and go ahead and get the business edition. So I'm just throwing that out there. I don't talk about Designer Edition Plus a whole lot, but it is a stepping stone in there. You also get flexi shapes, which can be kind of cool. Flexi shapes, I'll show you on the software, but they're just some little kind of just standard shapes. You get a star, you know, a heart, arrows, that sort of thing. You get warp templates, which we did not talk about, but it's another part of the warp feature where you can easily warp your text or probably designs, but most people use it for text. We have the custom patterns. That opens up, now we're talking about just the Designer Edition. Designer Edition really unlocks a lot because that's where you get the basic warp. You can pull in SVG files, you can import your custom patterns. If you do anything with sketching or anything with rhinestones, that's unlocked there. You get rulers and guides, you get layers. So a lot of really awesome features that you unlock. But like I said, don't feel pressure to do that right off the bat. Now I'm going to jump back over to the software, and I just want to show you that additional warp feature or anything else you want to see. If you guys noticed any features that you want to take a look at. So if I just type in hello, I'm going to fill it in so you guys can see it better. And let's choose a little bit better font. There we go. So now I can come up here. These are your templates, okay, to be able to warp your text to fit any shape. And then of course you get a little bit of leeway because all of these little nodes that you see here, you can use those to expand how it warps. So I feel like they made that pretty easy. And then the same thing over here, you can go to warp, and this part is, I think this is the basic warp, and you have more of a freehand look on how you would want to warp your text. I use the freehand a lot when I'm setting up files that, like, maybe I'm fitting text within a shape, or maybe I'm doing like some Subway word art where I want them to fit together, you know, or sometimes some of those quirky fonts that you can, you know, kind of have your letters stacking and fitting together like a puzzle. I like those a lot. So I make those myself using the warp feature, and it's pretty darn awesome. And then when you're done, you just hit release warp, and it saves these into letters that you can just group together and do whatever you need to do. So there's also some advanced color options that I can tell you guys about, because that can be important in Silhouette Studio. Is you can actually set up and print your own, like a color chart. All right, so I do this a lot for like greens and blues, because, you know, a lot of times I'll be trying to print out maybe like a mint or a teal, but when I press them, they're coming out blue, and that's just not what I want it to do. So you can come in here, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle. And I'm going to use a shortcut on my keyboard. It is Control with my right arrow, and kind of get me some boxes going. Now, Silhouette Studio has preset features for your colors, or preset colors, I guess is the better way to describe that. And I can fill these in with any color that I want to. Okay, and I can also change the transparency. That is, I use that a lot when I'm using sublimation backgrounds. So if I need a I don't know, a cheetah print background, but I don't want it to overpower my actual design, I'll come in here and change the transparency so that it fades a little bit. But back to the colors themselves, if you go down to advanced options, you have a few more things you can either just select straight on the little color chart here, or you can type in your RGB codes, and you can also type in your hex codes. In addition to that, you have an eyedropper feature, and you can choose any color you want. So say I wanted to color match to this clip art, I can come in here and grab that shade of purple. And not only does it fill my box and it saves it up here on the right hand side, but now it gives me the RGB code for that and the hex code for that. Okay, so that can be useful if you're trying to color match not only back to patterns, but if you're working with text or company logos or anything like that where you really have to get those colors exact. So definitely, and that is not business edition. That comes with your regular basic edition of Silhouette Studio, but really, really neat, really useful. One last thing that I'll go ahead and touch on is line styles, and then you do have a very limited image effects. So if I want to, for example, if this was a photo, and I do it with clip art or photos, but you do have the ability to turn something to black and white or grayscale. You have the ability to come in here and change the color hue. Now, you do only get a certain range of color changes. This is not going to be like setting up a color, a specific color change, or just changing part of a design. You won't be able to do that. You can also change your brightness, contrast, and saturation. A lot of times I will go ahead and increase the brightness if I'm printing something. That way, because I just feel like I get a little bit darker prints. So I'll come in here and update the brightness. And then there's a few other options. You can do inverted colors, change the tint, do a little bit of shadowing. Still just pretty basic for, if you're looking for an actual graphic design software, but still exciting for, especially if you're starting out in Silhouette Studio, then some pretty neat features that you can pair up with your sublimation designs. So hopefully I didn't throw too much out there.
Absolutely not. That's fascinating. I love learning new softwares. I did have Tammy on YouTube wanted to know about the weed line feature, what that was.
So your weed lines, that's going to be for cutting your vinyl. But what it does is for certain designs, it doesn't work for all of them, but certain designs, what it will do is it will section your design into little boxes so that you can weed out your design little pieces at a time. Okay, so it's not something that you would normally use with sublimation. I mean, and I can show it to you real quick if you want, if you guys are Silhouette users. Let me see. Let me get the rest of this. I'm gonna just, don't want it to be too crowded. All right, so if I pull this design up and I'm going to cut it out of vinyl, and I open up the weeding lines, there we go, weed settings. I always switch it to recursive. And for this design in particular, it didn't do anything, but I'm going to ungroup it so that I can show you. It will pick up if your design has a certain amount of separation. So see how it split that into two boxes? And it will continue to do that the more that I separate this design. So that's why it only works for certain designs, because it cannot come in between designs that are really fitted together, such as this one. But if you're cutting a basic design that has enough of a separation in between your different pieces, then you can definitely use the automatic weed lines to be able to make the weeding easier. This is really useful, in my opinion, like with either really big designs or really small designs. So.
Awesome.
That's what I have for weeding lines.
So I have a couple more technical questions.
Okay.
So somebody says they have the Cameo one and the Designer Edition. Should they not upgrade to the Business Edition?
Only if there's features that they need. If some of the features that we went over from that chart, or if you want to go check out the chart, you know, the warp feature, being able to import your CDR templates, or being able to save as a PNG, those are the ones right off the top of my head that would be worth upgrading for. But if you're fine with Designer Edition and you don't need those additional features, then you should be fine with what you have.
And then is there, there's quite a few people that are having like silhouette issues. Is there a way that they can reach out to Silhouette themselves, or is that more of a?
So yeah, they can reach out to Silhouette America. There's a